If you don't want summer to end without learning a new skill, this video is for you. You know how we all think that learning a new skill is this all or nothing thing. Like if you can't dedicate hours every day, you feel like it's not even worth starting. But what if I told you that belief is the reason many people never start? The truth is you can genuinely get good at any skill in less than an hour a day and still enjoy your summer. By the way, I'm Yulu. I learned multiple skills while working full-time and going to school by using the exact method I'm about to show you. So in this video, I'm going to break down the 3-step framework for learning any new skill. We'll cover how to structure your skill practice, how to keep making progress even when you don't have much time, and how to fit it into your day. The first step is to take the weight off practicing your skill. We all treat practice like a heavy backpack. And if you don't fix this, you're going to look back at the end of the summer and realize you spent another 3 months watching other people get better while you stayed in the exact same spot. That regret is 10 times worse than the effort of starting. The problem is most of us make practice way harder than it needs to be. We think we need to fill our backpacks with everything. Our books, our gear, the perfect mindset, a full hour of free time. It gets so heavy that we avoid it altogether. But what if the backpack was almost empty? What if we only had one thing in it? That's the secret. Make practice so light that it feels harder to skip it than to do it. I was stuck in this trap for so long with one specific skill. I wanted to become more flexible. I told myself I needed my yoga mat, enough space, a full 30 minutes of free time. I had to be in the right mood to stretch. I had to make sure I wasn't sore. All of these things. I planned to do it later in the day, but one of those 5 things wouldn't be perfect or wouldn't be right, and I would put it off. And then I'd put it off again. For the longest time, I thought my problem was motivation. I thought I needed to be more disciplined, more willpower. But I kept waiting for the day until I'd feel motivated to stick with it or motivated to keep doing it. But then I noticed something. The days that I skipped, it wasn't because I was lazy. It wasn't because I was tired. Sometimes it was my off day. The problem was that I was making practice too big to start. So instead of asking, how can I practice more? I started asking, how do I make this easier to start? How can I reduce friction? The answer was simple. Lower the bar. Instead of trying to do a full 30-minute session, I told myself I only had to practice for 5 minutes. So this is what you need to do. Set a timer for 5 minutes. When it goes off, you stop. No 10 minutes, no hour, just 5 minutes. When I used to do this with flexibility, I'd set the timer and just do a few basic stretches. The pressure goes away because you're not trying to get better. You're just trying to start. And the funny part is that starting is the hardest part. Once you start, 5 minutes doesn't feel like enough for whatever skill you're doing. You end up going for 10 minutes, even 15 minutes or longer without even thinking about it. And that's how you fix the hardest part, getting started. But once that part is solved, the real question is, how do you make real progress when you don't have much time? Most people think more time equals more progress, but that's not true. It's not about how long you practice, it's about what you do with that time, and I'm going to show you how. The next mistake we all fall into is what I call the time equals progress trap. We all think learning a skill is simple. The more time you put in, the more progress you get out. But if you only have 10 to 30 minutes a day, it feels like you'll never catch up to people who can practice for hours. And that type of thinking is usually what gets us stuck. Because once you believe progress is all about time, every missed day feels like a setback. Every busy week feels like proof that you don't have time and that you should put off learning the skill for another month, 2 or 3 months. So instead of thinking about how to get better, you spend your time wishing you had more time. Months go by and you practice when you can, or you don't practice at all because you think there's no point. And before you know it, you're still a beginner at something you wanted to be good at months or even years ago. But that's not how learning a skill works. Because if time alone made people better, everyone who played basketball for years would still be amazing or would be good right now. Everyone who took piano lessons as a kid would still be great. Everyone who watched hundreds of tutorials would be very good and be an expert almost. But that's not how it happens. Time and progress are not the same thing. You could spend an hour practicing the wrong things and barely improve. Or you could spend 10 minutes practicing the right thing and make real progress. And I think that's the part most of us miss. It's not that we don't have enough time, it's that we never really taught how to use the time that we already have. I remember when I was trying to get better at a skill, and if you asked me, what was I actually working on? I honestly wouldn't have been able to tell you. I would have just told you I'm getting better, or, I'm working on it, I'm trying to understand it, blah, 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 blah. That was all just bullshit. I couldn't tell you. I was practicing, but I didn't actually know what I was improving. Was I getting better at basics? Was I fixing mistakes? Was I building speed, consistency? What part of the skill was I building? I had no idea. And because of that, every practice session was confusing. I just felt like I was going through the motions and I couldn't point to any areas of improvement. At first, I thought the problem was simple. I just needed to be more consistent or put in more time, but that wasn't it. Because even when I did that, nothing was really changing. So I started asking myself, what am I supposed to focus on? What am I supposed to do today or tomorrow or the next time I'm working on the skill? That's when I realized I wasn't really understanding the skill. I wasn't breaking the skill into smaller parts. I was treating it as one big thing as get better at this skill. I just needed to quote unquote get better. So every session, I couldn't tell you what I was working on. Or if I was working on something, I couldn't point to the big picture of what it was taking me. I had no direction, just time. And that's why I stayed stuck for so long. What fixed this for me is I started understanding the different phases of every skill, starting with the first phase, the foundational phase. It starts with first principles because every skill is made of a few basic parts that are the fundamentals that make the skill work. Most people skip this. They just practice the skill as one big thing. But once you understand fundamentals, everything gets clear. You start having direction with the skill. So before I practice, I break any skill into its fundamental parts. This is what we call the foundational phase. For example, when I was working on voice control, I didn't just practice quote unquote voices. I broke it down to its basics: pitch, placement, tone, pacing, all these different variables that go into a skill. Then every session, I picked one thing to focus on. Maybe today I was working on pitch. Maybe today I was working on breath, so I could have a really breathy voice. As I go into the session, I already know what I want to work on, or I already figured out what part to work on, so I can get past the foundational phase. And once you understand the foundational phase of your skill, and you stick there and you keep drilling the fundamentals until they start feeling natural, as a result, you get better. And as a result, you understand where to go naturally. Once you finish the foundational phase, you naturally understand where to go. You're never just practicing it more. Now that you understand this with a skill, you always know what part of the skill you're improving. Every session, there's direction. Every session, you know what you're going to do. And there's no more confusion. And this is the real reason it works, even if you're busy. Because you don't need hours to do this. You don't need hours every day to improve the skill. You just need focus session where you actually know what you're working on. And you can point to where you're improving. That's what the foundational phase does. When you write out the foundational phase for your skill, you know every part of the skill for this first block, and you know what to work on. And that's what makes 10 to 20 minutes or 5 minutes, which doesn't seem like a lot to get better at the skill, actually help you build skill. Because with these 5-10 minutes, you know exactly what you're working on, and you can make clear improvements. And you can still enjoy your life, you can still enjoy summer, because now you know every second or every 5 to 10, 20 minutes you practice, you're actually making improvements. So now you know how to practice the right way. Here's the final problem. None of that matters if you can't find the time to do it, because your calendar is already full. You have work, school, family, and 100 other things to do. And the idea of adding another thing on your to-do list or another thing to do, even if it's for 5-10 minutes, sometimes feels impossible, or you would tell yourself, I don't have time for that. And in the next part, I'll show you how to find time in that schedule, or a different way to look at it. So instead of trying to force time in your schedule to practice, you flip it. You look at your actual day first, and you ask yourself, where can this skill naturally fit without making my life harder? Because this is where most people get stuck. They know what to practice, they know how to practice, but they never figure out how to make it fit into their life. So the skill stays an idea, something they'll start next week or next month, or when life finally slows down. And before they know it, another few months go by, and they're no closer to the person they wanted to become. And that's why this last step matters. Because once you learn how to make a skill fit into your day, you can start making consistent progress. And consistency stops feeling like effort. At first, I know this sounds great in theory. Just make the skill fit into your life. But then you have to ask yourself, how do you do that? Because at first, I had no idea how to do it either. Was I supposed to practice before work, after work, during lunch, on the weekends? Everywhere I looked in my day, it felt like I was full. You know, it feels like your days are full. You feel like you have no time, and you still don't know where the skill's supposed to do. But then I started wondering, instead of trying to force the skill into my schedule, how am I even supposed to, where do I put it? Then I thought to myself, the answer is simple. Just wake up earlier, sacrifice a little sleep, and you'll be more disciplined. But that just made me tired and miserable. The real breakthrough happened when I stopped trying to look for time and I started looking for opportunities. The way I think about it now is pretty simple. First, you want to figure out what your skill actually needs. I call this the skill audit. Because we make practice more complicated than it really is, we need to ask ourselves, what's the minimum space we need, what's the minimum equipment we need, and what's the minimum energy we need for the skill we're learning. Every skill is different. If you're learning a language, maybe all you need is your phone and a pair of headphones. Maybe you could do it when you're a little bit more tired, or maybe you need to be super fresh because you're more advanced. If you're learning juggling, maybe all you need is 3 balls and a little bit of space. If you're learning voice acting, maybe all you need is a quiet room and 10 minutes. If you're learning escape training, maybe you need equipment, someone to help you, and a little space for quiet. Whatever you need to figure that out. The point is, stop thinking about the skill as one giant thing and figure out what it actually takes to get 10 to 30 minutes of focused practice in. Then comes step 2. Now that you know what the skill needs, you start looking at your day differently. You're not looking for an extra hour, you're looking for opportunities where you have the minimum space, the minimum equipment, and minimum energy to do your skill. Maybe it's 10 minutes before work, maybe it's part of your lunch break. Maybe it's a few minutes when you first get home before you relax. You stop asking yourself, when can I practice? And start asking, where does this fit? Because once you do that, practice stops feeling like another thing on your to-do list, and it just becomes a part of your day. And that's really the shift. You stop trying to squeeze the skill into a perfect schedule, and you just work with what life already gave you. No pressure to be perfect, no feeling like you're behind, just small moments where you slowly get better. And honestly, that's what makes it stick long term. If you take everything we talked about and you zoom out, it really becomes simple. You don't need huge amounts of time to learn a skill anymore. Instead, it comes down to 3 things. You figure out what the skill actually needs, you break it down so you know what to focus on, and you find small pockets of time where it already fits. So yeah, what we really learned is this. It's not about finding more time in your day. It's about understanding what the skill actually needs from you. You start with the skill audit, you figure out your minimum space, your minimum equipment, and your minimum energy. That's how you define what real 10 to 30 minutes looks like. Then, instead of doing this one thing of instead of thinking I need to find free time, and you start looking for time where you have the minimum time, minimum energy, and minimum equipment you need to do the skill. The biggest thing is stop saying I don't have time and start saying where does this actually fit into my day? Because when you make that identity shift and you stop saying that, you can see it. You can start seeing it. But if you keep saying that go-to phrase, I don't have time, then you're never gonna see the time and your brain is never gonna look for time. So start thinking, where can I fit this in? And once that click, everything will change for you, because learning a skill will stop feeling like this overwhelming thing. And it becomes another thing you slowly build into your life using the time that's already there. And that's how you beat the expectations that most people have, that you need hours every day just to make progress. You don't. And now that you know how it works, work with your life instead of against it. As always, if you have any questions, let me know. And until next time, you luau.